This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we're going to formally kick it off. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. I'm Joe Marion, president of ASCDI. With the platform we're using today is GoToMeeting, and you're all probably too familiar with the buttons already. You can mute yourselves. You can. We don't have. So we can handle about 250 people on this platform. So if you want to turn on your cameras, that's great. You can mute yourselves, as I said. You can chat individually, or and you can post any questions you have on the chat to the entire group. So feel free to use them. And again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I especially want to thank Astrid Wynn, Jessica Wehner from KEEP, Rohi Sukhia from OBADA, and I want to thank all of you for attending today. And for those who are going to be listening on this at YouTube after the event, we're going to be recording this event. We're going to be posting it on our YouTube channel. And take a look at that. We have a really cool ASCDI channel on YouTube with some really interesting stuff, including today's event. Will be out there very shortly. When the pandemic started, ASCDI began holding monthly webinars in order to help our industry maintain contact. Some of these webinars have been a lot of fun and social, and some of them have been very serious. This one's serious. Our world has begun to go through a seismic change. Governments everywhere have decided to deal with climate change. Trillions of dollars are being thrown at green solutions, and end user companies are going to be financially rewarded for dealing with companies that provide green solutions. And they're going to be punished if their customers' data ends up on the dark web. The circular economy and data protection spell opportunity for our industry. Kind of reminds me back in the 70s and 80s, there was a 10% investment tax credit issued by the US government for anybody who bought new equipment. That was a boom to our industry. I think green, circular economy, data protection, those are also going to be booms for our industry. But companies that claim to provide green solutions are going to have to prove it. Manufacturers are going to have to disclose what materials are going into their products. Resellers and service providers are going to have to prove that the equipment they're selling is not ending up in landfills and it's, the data is not going out on the dark web. And that's really what today is all about. The ACI has been working with a Swedish-based initiative called KEEP and a US-based initiative called OBADA. We're going to hear from both of these projects in a minute, but first I want you to hear from today's sponsor, who's an ASCDI member. Their company has really embraced the circular economy, and I want to give you Ashik Wynn from TechBuyer. Ashik, go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I guess we'd just like to publicise how effective being part of the circular economy can be in terms of business. We are a growth company, particularly over the past few months, due to the supply chain issues with new. We've grown 40% over the last 18 months. But more importantly, I think the way you integrate circular economy into your messaging is vital. I think if you're going to do it, you have to do it properly. You have to look at your incoming product and you have to look at your downstream activities. So we're R2 certified in the US and Europe as part of that. And we really try and make every aspect of our business circular. And that means joining international research projects to promote circularity in the data center sector. And it means joining alliances like Free ICT Europe, who are promoting that at the Commission level in the EU, and trying to understand that and come together as a sector to provide reliable answers from inside the industry on how to make this work. And that's why I'm really excited to hear from the speakers today, because I think that they can inform the industry really well on how to do that.
Great. Ashley, thank you. And thank you again for your membership, your sponsorship, and for being here today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to bring on Jessica Wehner from KEEP, our Swedish partner. Take it away, Jessica.
Yes, thank you very much, Joe. So my name is Jessica Wehner. I work in Sweden, in Gothenburg, at a non-profit.
I'm listening to.
At a non-profit organization called Chalmers Industriteknik. We are having a lot of research projects and demonstration projects. And one of them is Keep, and Keep has been going on for a while, and I'm very happy to talk about it because it's as up to date as probably none other project. It's about keeping electrical and electronic products in the cycle, and we're developing a traceability solution for electric and electronic products in a circular system. Joe, one click. Yeah, so I just don't think I need to lay out the background, but that the electronic waste is increasing in rapid pace. We probably have all heard, and what this means for us. I'll let you click one again. And society and industry is in dire need of a tool that can facilitate circularity, and that's where the idea for Keep came. Keep is a tool, or so far it's an idea, a system that should track all material and components and their origin, and that for all electric and electronic products. So that is kind of the vision. I put it a bit like where we want to come. I'll let you click one more. And that's when we started Keep in 2018. We did a feasibility study and identified 3 main circularity goals that such a system should contribute to, and that is sustainable production, reuse of materials, and material recycling. And and the traceability solution pretty much does it through covering the whole life cycle. So we have the idea that through the whole life cycle, we put information of an electrical product into the system and can take it out. So every product would have a unique product identity, and then we can see where it's produced and when it's purchased, and also put in information about how often it has been. Okay, someone maybe has to mute themselves because I heard a lot of and here we have an overview of different benefits. So for example, when the producer today sells their product, they often lose any information about it, but with the traceability system, they know how they are used, how long they are used, and they can improve their product so they are used longer and better recycled in the end. We also have the information that the purchaser now can easier access and request information from the producer, but also help maybe customers to take better choices. We have the certifier that also has it much easier to access information and then certify products. The reseller is the same. They will know what sustainable products they're going to sell now to their customers. When you're as a consumer or user, you can do more informed choices, and you know how to maybe recycle your product in the end of the use time. And you have troubleshooting and repair guides. As a service organization, you also see the service history and can put in your own service, and have a better access to the repair guides, for example. And then when we come to the end of the life cycle, we have a better possibility to sort the product because we have better information about what is in there, and we also have much easier to repair, to remanufacture it and see the history of the product. And so we can also, for example, protect our workers who work at the material recycling because we know of hazardous materials. One more click. And here's a little time line. So we started already 2018 with a pre-study, and back then no one really had talked about traceability, so it was actually a little complicated or hard to find partners to convince them that they should be in. But once we had done the pre-study and found a bigger group, we have now worked for the last 2 years to develop a proof of concept, or a prototype as we call it. I will introduce it in a second. And we have just before summer this year finished the Keep 2 phase, and we are now starting very soon the Keep 3 phase. There we want to do a full-scale testing of such a system and do more evaluation and see how we can actually use it in the future. And click once again. And that is actually something which has come along the way, is the EU that released something called the European Green Deal, and they mentioned something called the electric product passport, and that should help could provide information on the product's origin, composition, repair, and dismantling possibilities. So this is something mentioned in 2019 in a document in the EU. They're still not clear if this is a document that should be like alive, and as we understand our Keep our keep system, that we can, during the whole life cycle, enter and take out information, or if this electric product passport is more like a passport that only contains information from the production. But we think that this is actually something that we have now the chance to influence and be in this conversation. And we have been in the last year, 1.5, take actively part into this conversation with other initiatives as well that are working towards a product passport. So this is, I think, why the key product project has also gained on so much popularity or interest, because this is something so highly discussed. And I know that most of you are not from Europe, but I think if there's such a big maybe step taken that we actually have an electronic product passport for products that are sold in the EU, that will of course be a big impact as well for the US. One more click. Yeah, and then just on the side, so even Sweden has put the product passport on its top #1 in the Sweden's circular action plan, which they released in the beginning of this year. So you really can see that this is a very hot topic being discussed right now on all levels. Click one more. So in the last phase, where we have worked like the last 2 years on, we looked, or with our project partners, we discussed very thoroughly what information should be in such a passport, and what would also enable a circular system. We developed a prototype, mostly a front end of a prototype, but I will introduce that one in a few seconds. And then we have evaluated this prototype together with different actors in the value chain. And in the next slide, we have an overview of our last project group as they have been so far. And we worked very close to those goals we had identified in the beginning: sustainable production, reuse, material recycling, and also gave a user perspective. And and on the next slide, I want to mention now that on the project homepage, keepelectronics.com, you can find a prototype. I will now explain it quickly, but I think for everyone who is here and is interested to see more about it, you should log in, since it's much more interactive if you log in. So once you would go on the site, you find something named called demo, and once you click it, you can choose one of 6 actor roles, because different actors in the life cycle should see or have access to different information. And now in this one, on the screenshot, we see the consumer's side. So the consumer sees different information about, here, for example, a laptop, about technical specification, the product's history, the usage, support, end of life. And we have actually put in 3 of our project partners have put in real products of theirs. Of course, this was a very difficult exercise, because it's very hard at this point today to get all the information. But this was actually quite interesting for us to see, because some of the information they are just spread over the whole organizations. Some of them are with producers. So we think once something like this would be established, there would be also a much more better collection about the information. So, and we also decided now in this prototype to mark each of those little fields with an information in the corner, and visualize how easy it is to get those information at the current stage today, and maybe to also inform how this could change in the future. There's now a lot of things in the prototype, and I don't think I have time to go into all of this, but for example, one of those is the different information for different actors. One of that is that even for consumers seeing all information, it's still quite hard making decisions. So we think there should be a score of a product. So when we see how much energy it uses, it actually also rates, is that good, energy efficient, or is that bad? So there are a lot of things that are supposed to be in the system later on. But of course, we are now in the developing phase. So, and we don't think that we are the ones developing the score, but there are a lot out there, so we could use maybe one of those. You can click one more. And while working on Keep during the last years, we had identified quite some things that also need to be done to develop a backend. And one of those is that we need a standard, because we realized there will not be one traceability system. There are so many initiatives have popped up since the product passport has been announced for the first time. So we need to communicate between all these traceability systems. So we think the one way to do it is to package all the information in a certain way so they can be transferred between systems. There will be a lot of data collected, and we think that the way to do that is in a decentralized storage of data. So every one of the producers, for example, stores their own data or outsource to a company. Then we need the right routing layers and everything in place that we can transfer the data and allows communication between those systems. And a very important part is the trustworthiness of data. I mean, if we use a system like Keep, and Keep is now an example only, but we have to be sure that the data is correct when it's entered, and there can be two levels, either the producer, for example, or any other organization marks that they have put it in, or we have maybe a third party that certifies that. And then also we have to make sure that data along the way through the whole life cycle is also trustworthy. Next slide. If you're interested to learn a bit more about Keep, we had summarized everything together with some interviews from our project partners in a report, and then we have published on the homepage. So I absolutely recommend to have a look into this and get a bit inspired. And we always think that it's not over. Keep 3, phase 3 is now to come. So you can click and directly actually one more, because we have now identified 3 things we want to work in the next round with, and that is the information sharing standard and the back end. Because as I said, our prototype has now a very nice front end, but we need to work on the back end. And then we want to work on the production and sales part. So that means we want to test products that we put in, from the producers release on the market. And then in the 2 years project, we pretty much can't track a product until the end of its life cycle. So we want to do a similar test on the end of the life cycle in the remanufacturing part. And the next slide will explain, will explain a bit more the idea of the technical solution, the development of technical solution. So as a first objective, we want to develop a common standard for information sharing access, and then develop and implement an architecture for trusted data access. And that is something we're gonna start doing, hopefully then from next year on, and discuss with our project partners what they think is the best solution. And as CD, that you are with us, so I know that Rory is absolutely voting for the blockchain, so he will talk about that in a moment more. And so we will develop the information sharing and enable interoperability and support the development of traceability systems. And we don't only see the Keep as the one solution. It's very clear that there will be so many different systems, and they have to talk to each other. Then on the next slide, there we have lost some visualization, but that's okay. We want to understand how traceability systems can be useful and collect the right information, what for changes they do. So we want to actually test that by decide which information, probably in a little shorter list than in a more practical list now for our test should be collected. Then we want to have the database and connect it to the unique product identities and set different projects on the market and test that, like collect and analyze what data can we collect, and does this is useful for anyone in the life cycle, and what does this mean? Can we do different decisions and live more, maybe have a more circular system? So that is the one test we want to do in the front of the life cycle. And then on the next slide, we want to do a similar test, as I said, at the end of the life cycle, and give reused products a unique identity when they are at the remanufacturer. That one we identified as a very good place where we can actually mark a product for the first time as well with a unique product identity and set it back on the market after it has, for example, been repaired or remanufactured. And we will want to do here the same, connect those to our database and then collect data for a while. And on the next slide, we see a bit how this is going to look when we talk about the structure of a project. Also here, some of the optics have changed now, but that doesn't really matter. So we're going to work in the first activity for the information sharing standard with many of our project partners, probably everyone, but I just didn't have the place for all the logos. And we decide what information we want to share and how they're going to be shared. And then we do a test. That's the red part, production and sales, where we're going to have different test environments and test how products can be set on the market, and then how the data can be collected and shared. And we have different companies, we call them now testers, but they're different producers and retailers who have products they would like with us to test. And then on the other side, on the end life cycle of the remanufacturing side, we also have different test environments and want to do a very similar thing where we within those test environments give unique product identities to products that arrive there. Yeah, and then of course this all have to be evaluated, and we have to see how can a business model look for the future, how this idea can be carried on. We probably have there a clear or a close look what the EU is also deciding on that part, because we are very much waiting right now for the EU to come out with the result of a consultation that we did before the summer. So this project has gotten a bit maybe connected to politics and connected to what is decided on the EU level. Yeah, and that is the idea. And then on the next slide, which is now my last slide, and now we have the disadvantage of that I had to send in my slides yesterday, because today we actually got our project granted now for the next years. So I had changed the slide, but then we have now here one I had sent in yesterday. So now we're actually part of a Circular consortium. So in Sweden there are different traceability systems, and they are focused not all only on products. Some of them maybe focus on wastewater or material from mining, and we have one on construction sites and buildings. So we have very different projects, and all of them work in their own way, but then we also have them on an overarching project together, because as I said, it's very important that we learn to talk between different systems. So yeah, products or other things could go between systems as well. Yeah, and that one is then, as well as the current version, was financed by the Swedish Innovation Agency, Vinnova. And we're going to start very soon, I think, but with the kickoff in January. And that was, you can click one more. That is was my little story to Keep. On keepelectronics.com, you can find some more information. And yeah, we are now looking forward to really do some testing and give unique product identities to products and collect data, and then hopefully also change the system with that. Thank you very much.
Jessica, thank you. We're going to make sure to share those links to your website and the other information with our guests. So we'll send that out to everybody following this meeting. We're also going to send out a recording of this so you can all play it back if you need to. Jessica, thank you very much. I know it's late there, so feel free to stay, or it might be time to go have a coffee or take the day off. But thank you very much for showing up this evening for you. We appreciate it.
Europe a bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Next on board, we have Rohi Sukhia from the OBADA project. Rohi's become a good friend of mine as well as a competitor over the years, but I love him dearly, and I'm loving the OBADA project. So Rohi, take it away.
Cool. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sometimes I'll talk for 5 minutes and realize I was on mute. So, okay, so I'm talking about OBADA, and that stands for the Open Blockchain for Asset Disposition Architecture. This is a huge topic, and I'm going to try and keep it high level and go quickly. Joe, move me along, because you know how I will just get stuck and talk about something forever. So my day job is I run Trade Loop Corporation and founded OBADA. It's basically volunteer effort for the most part. I'm also on the board of repair.org and on the ISO TC 307 blockchain committee. And keep going. So OBADA's been around for 4 years now. We've done, I won't read the whole slide here, but we've done a number of different proof of concepts using a couple of different blockchain architectures. A couple years ago, ISO heard about us and kind of approached us and said this would be a good project to work with us. And we're still going with them. I was on a call with 37 countries on Monday morning and talking about OBADA. We have a monthly working group, about 130 participants, and that's been going for the whole time. There's a foundation, nonprofit foundation, of 12 board members, of which Joe is part of. And yeah, so let's keep going. So this is one slide explaining NFTs. Everyone's probably heard of NFTs now, as well as blockchain. And they come in a number of categories: art, music. The piece in the middle was a $69 million artwork sold by a guy named Beeple. Jimmy Fallon this week announced he's bought a Bored Ape avatar. All the big celebrities have these avatars. You can buy dunk shots of LeBron James for $1 million. These are all digital. And by the way, the biggest two are on the right, and they're just starting to happen: music and video games. These are natural candidates for digital NFTs. But so people are familiar with NFTs. They're not just JPEGs; they're JPEGs that you own. So yes, you can right-click save these, and you might find it questionable to be spending $100,000 on a JPEG. But they come with ownership rights, and in the case of art and music and those kind of things, it could be rights for distribution or rights for royalties. So let's go on to the next slide, talk about how OBADA is different. We're defining physical NFTs. So NFT is a non-fungible token, which has turned out to mean today these kind of JPEG things, but technically and in the future, all assets will be represented digitally by digital NFTs, physical NFTs. So a word we were previously using is digital twins. Each of your products will be represented by an NFT, a digital representation that will include ownership and all the information about the product and can transfer across a supply chain, owner to owner to owner, carrying with it the information. So if you want to think about what it looks like, it's kind of like a Carfax. So a Carfax is a centralized service, meaning there's a company running it. With these NFTs, there is no company. You create this NFT, you own the NFT, you transfer the NFT, and along with it goes the deed or the bill of sale, or basically the rights to the device. So you sell the NFT, you sell the device. It's a digital twin, and it's permanently tied to the device. Includes the ownership as well as the history. So I won't go through the graphic here, but some of the ideas of things that can get attached to an NFT, like the Carfax. And in the future, as IoT devices become prevalent, these NFTs can act as an address to talk to the IoT device. So, and everything here is encrypted. So even though you see it all, the information is only for the owner. So where do you keep these Carfaxes, these physical NFTs? Well, the easiest way to think about it is you keep them in a cloud database, okay? So imagine a cloud database that our entire industry could use to store all the information about all our devices. That sounds great. Why don't we do that? Well, who is going to run this thing? Who would trust any company to run this centralized system? Without charging too much or spying on the data, or, you know, worst case scenario is somebody like Cisco or maybe Apple or Oracle runs this thing and then uses it for their own purposes to fight right for repair. No, there can't be a central database because it won't be accepted. But with blockchain, there is no database. It's decentralized. So each actor runs his own node, which is essentially a copy of the database, and they all sync. So to the user, it looks just like they're using some cloud database, but in reality, nobody's running it. It's run by everybody. So the people running it are essentially the owners of this decentralized business. So this slide I won't spend much time on, But today, this is not a digital industry. It is a manual, email, phone. I won't say fax anymore, but it's something sells, something, the data has to get emailed along that goes with it. You may list your inventory on numerous different websites or send it around, but those are just copies of your inventory file. If something sells, they all have to get updated. Nothing is in sync. And payments are still done in the 2021 old-fashioned way, which is send a purchase order or an invoice, checks in the mail, check accounts receivable, accounts payable. It's a lot of processing, and if there's a small payment to be made, it isn't really feasible to do. You can't really pay somebody $1 or $2, maybe credit card, then you pay the fee. But let's keep going. So what if there was this cloud database that is not owned by any one entity? It would syncing, sorry about that. It would snitching the inventory, it would syncing the inventory of resellers, ITAS recyclers, and maybe even end users and manufacturers once something like an ISO standard is ratified behind it. Now, if there was this database, every inventory system can sync all the documents that go with everyone's inventory, drive wiping reports, proof of functionality, everything syncs. And everything is provable, which I'll talk about in a second. It's not just loading documents and paperwork up to a database. There's more to it than that. And so now all parties can see your inventory or your devices, and payments can go through this registry with no intermediary. You want to pay somebody $1? How about a cent? How about 1/3 of a cent? You can do it through the registry with no fees and no middleman and no bank.
Hey, Rohi, I'm going to interrupt you just one quick, because Joe Murray just kind of popped up a question, which is actually a pretty good one. How does one claim ownership to a certain product? A lot of serial numbers that are flying around spreadsheets. So how do you who claims the ownership? How does one claim ownership?
You know what? Can we tackle that in like 2 or 3 slides? Because there's.
You got it.
Yeah. So governments and end users are starting to demand traceability. And, if you're following the correct standards for doing drive wipes, chain of custody must be maintained. I think that's kind of at the core of this Morgan Stanley lawsuit, that the data breach or loss of custody of the data that happened to Morgan Stanley a couple of years ago or a year or two ago. So without going through this slide piece by piece, you can see an image, though, of a representation of how device would move from the end user to the recycler eventually through this ITAD chain, this kind of reverse supply chain. And at each step of the chain, something needs to be done to satisfy a demand, whether it's proof of data destruction, proof of functionality, proof of recycling, and the registry can act as a single place where the device can be tracked from cradle to grave. And that is, I think, as Joe was saying, we are now potentially getting a little ahead of this demand that is going to start to happen. And it has to be done this way. You can't create a chain of custody system that's going to track a device from start to finish across an industry unless everyone in the industry is following a similar standard. So if you control the device, yes, you can do it. If you and your 2 partners are controlling the device, yes, you can maintain chain of custody. But once it goes out into the wild, you're going to lose track of where it went. And since no one is going to trust a central authority to track this, blockchain is the only way this is going to happen. So here's where I can start to answer that question, Joe. So this next 2 slides, very short, but a kind of demonstration of how this thing could work tactically. So let's say you're using this tech reuse software. Tech Spec is the name of it, and it's Charles Brennick has invented this. And they're one of the partners in OBADA. So you plug this USB stick into, like everyone's probably familiar with how this kind of works. You plug it into the laptop and it boots off the stick. The stick reads the device specs and then potentially wipes the drive. okay? Inside of that stick, there's a little formula which takes the serial number, the make and the model off the firmware, and it turns it into a NFT address. That's what our standard does. It's a standard method for creating a cryptographic blockchain address based on information like the serial number, which is best done machine read right off the machine. So keep going. So now you plug that stick in the server, or maybe it was done over the network. Either way, that QR code represents the blockchain address, and the information from that stick gets posted to the blockchain. There's no administration here. There's no one to email, and that stick has its own password built into it, its own cryptographic key, so it signs this. So now in the future, or at the request of the person who's paying you to wipe it, they can see that the device was wiped, and they know when it was wiped, and they know exactly how it was wiped because the software that wiped it has signed it. So you can't fake that because you can't fake that signature. So this is what I mean when I say proof. Today, proof is, hey, send me the certificates of data sanitization, and the guy on the other end of the phone is like, oh, sure, let me just go get a bunch of PDFs and put them in a zip file and send them over to you. You could fake that in 900 different ways. Blockchain, you cannot fake these things.
Hey, Rohi, I'm going to interrupt you with one of the questions just popped up. Came from Artisan Power, from John and Artisan Power. They sell rechargeable batteries. You pick, think UPSs. Why would a customer want to own an NFT of a battery in addition to owning the physical battery? You kind of touched on it. I'm just going to let you drill down a little bit more if you don't mind. What's in it for them?
Yeah, well, battery is a tough one. First of all, we actually participated in the Department of Energy battery pilot with Everledger a couple of years ago, and batteries are tough because this standard, an NFT, by definition, is a non-fungible token, meaning it's unique. And the problem with batteries is we cannot identify uniqueness. There's no common serial number or any identifier on the batteries, so they are fungible. And that is a whole different problem in terms of not really blockchain, just chain of custody. How do you maintain chain of control and chain of custody on a specific battery when there's no way to identify it from another identical battery? But the benefit to chain of custody in general, that goes. So just extrapolating the question to a higher level.
Yeah, and Rohi, just let's assume for me the battery was serial number. So instead of don't think battery, think like a UPS. So it has a serial number on it. Okay, think that way.
And is the question, why is it important to maintain chain of custody, or
the customer buys the battery, so now or the UPS, so he physically owns the UPS. But why does he? What's the value in owning the NFT to the customer?
What's the value in owning the NFT? Well, the NFT is simply a digital representation of the data that goes along with it. So it's like asking, what is the value of owning the data about the UPS, which the data could be the bill of sale, the data could be the last time it was repaired, the data could be the status of the warranty, the data could be authenticity from the manufacturer. So the value of the NFT is that it packages up this data in a way that can just be transferred from one to the next, and the NFT can carry money with it to pay for the future service, and the NFT can be updated directly from software that reads the machine to supply proof.
Yep. And let me kind of tack onto that, because I'm going to answer my own question a little bit too. The other aspect is when they're done using that battery, and that battery or that UPS is destroyed, goes to a landfill or to a recycler, right? There could be a reward that's involved there. So either maybe the manufacturer or the person who sold it to the recycler gets a reward for recycling that product. Owning the NFT is going to enable you to cash in on that reward.
Exactly.
You can't do it without the NFT.
It creates traceability where there is none. Yep. And that enables systems like reward, or in the future, a potential restructuring of the EPR systems, which are tracking things by weight today, which are not tied in any way to the actual products. But this kind of technology can tie it to the product. And just while I'm thinking of this, I didn't put, this isn't in the presentation, but this relative to Jessica's presentation on the Keep side, This is actually a perfect fit with Keep, because Keep is I would describe as a front-end solution that kind of defines the logistics of the interface and how all of the products can interface to the user. Ours is completely a back-end solution. This is a database. There is no UI. There's no intent to have a UI. The users of this build their own UIs. This integrates into your inventory system, and that's your UI. This is just the back-end database for systems like Keep. So yeah, here's where we go into the rewards and such. So the big question is, how does this work in terms of finance? Who pays for all this, right? So, sorry, this was a leftover from the last presentation where Dr. Ron Lemke from University of Reno gave this part. So the basics economics are what they call gas, and this is kind of a standard part of blockchains, a gas fee. And so essentially the way it works is you buy utility tokens, which, it's like when I used to go to the arcade, and I'm old enough to say I played Space Invaders. You buy the tokens and you put them in the machine, and those tokens represent the money. This is just like that. Or if you go to a casino and you use casino chips, you can use them for many things. You can tip the waiter, or you can hand them to your friend. And at the end of the day, you can turn them back into cash. This is the same exact thing. This is not even similar. It's the same. So these utility tokens are used to pay for gas. Every time you update the database, create an NFT or update an NFT, it costs like a penny or whatever the gas fee is. And that penny is paid in the form of a token. And there's no charge to read information. It's just to write to the database. So let's keep going. So you attach your token along to the with your information you want to update to this kind of Carfax, and you can just kind of keep going through this. And that token gets pushed into the blockchain, and where does this money go? The tokens are infinitely reusable. They don't get burned up. The money gets distributed to the node holders. So the people running the blockchain, if the token goes in and it's worth 1 penny, and there's 100 nodes, that penny is divided into 100, and each node gets 100th of a penny. So the number of transactions is all divided up. There's no middle, and goes to the node holders. There's no middleman. There's no company. There's no processing. There's no administration. This is all done with code. Automated. And at the end of the day, these node holders collect their tokens and they want to turn them back into cash. There's a token buyback pool where they can redeem the token for cash, which is essentially will be a stable coin, which would be a US dollar denominated token or something similar, which they can then use as money. So that keeps the lights on, and that's the basic fundamental economics of the system. The exciting part is the reward system, and this is kind of a game changer. This is something that could potentially change the world of recycling. And when I say recycling, I use these words to be simple. It's technically final disposition. There's a reward at final disposition, which means recycling or reuse. Proof of recycling or reuse issues a reward. Here's how it works. So to claim a reward and at the same time order chain of custody, it's the same mechanism. An end user would stake a token. In this case, we put 1. You could think of it as $1. It's like taping a dollar bill to the side of the laptop. It's exactly like that, except it's taped to the digital version. So as it moves through this supply chain, the industry also, and the word is stakes, they stake a little bit of money to this laptop. So maybe a dime from the ITAD and another dime from the broker and another dime from the refurbisher. You can flip through, Joe. And so this laptop is kind of starts off with $1 or 1 token, and it ends up with, say, 1.3 when it gets to the recycler or when it goes to reuse. And so when the recycler marks or uploads his proof of recycling, which in this case may simply be a testament such that is the same they would give to the state to claim their rewards, their EPR rewards. When they upload their proof of recycling, the smart contract releases that token, and then it's returned like a deposit return system back to all the actors, along with a proof report that shows that this device was properly recycled or went into reuse. Straightforward deposit return system like people are familiar with cans, soda cans, that kind of thing. But then what we do is we issue another token. It's minted. A new token is created. So in blockchain and Bitcoin, the term is mining, and the miners are making new Bitcoin. In our case, we don't have a system like that. Our mining system is based on recycling. Recycling or reuse for life extension. A new token is mined, and that is distributed to all of these actors. So if you think of where this goes, and you can flip through the animation, Joe. If you think of what this means, if you are an end user with 100,000 electronic assets in circulation, you can stake each one of those assets with $1 while they're still in use. And then at the time when they're recycled or reused by the channel, you get not only your dollar back, but you'll get some return on that dollar, like a yield. So in a sense, we have kind of come up with a way to pay the world to recycle. And it's not just a benefit for the end user, the recycler gets a piece, and the recyclers need the recoverable material value is not enough to pay their bills. So they need that. And all the actors in the chain who made it happen get a piece too. So where does this free money come from, this magic internet money? How are we printing these tokens? Well, it's tied to the loss rate. So I think people are aware on this call probably how many of the devices, first of all, 85% of all devices worldwide are not tracked at all. And those that go into the ITAD channel, somewhere between 25 and 50% can't be tracked past the second or third actor. So a number of these will just be lost. The guy in the middle says, I'm going to sell this thing to some guy on eBay, screw the blockchain, and the tokens attached are gone. And now the guys who are upstream know who did it now because of the proofs. So they can go after him to say, why did you do that? But those tokens are lost. So that loss rate is replaced. So some casino chips get lost. At the end of the day, they count up the chips and produce new ones to cover the loss, and the new ones go to the people who do it right. So that's the reward, and it's paid for by token economics. So the last piece here, and I'm probably running out of time, Joe. I don't see a camera, but I'm almost done. I mean, I don't see a clock on my computer. So how is this organized? Well, first there's a foundation. There's two entities, and I didn't go over the foundation, but it's a nonprofit, 501c6, and that's who is in charge of developing the standard behind all of this. But the nodes, the operations of it, we formed what's called a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. And it's just essentially an agreement to run the software. It's a legal entity wrapped in an LLC in the state of Wyoming. And we have limited it to 100 members. We don't want it to be too big that it can't be managed or people won't have a say, but we don't want it to be too small that it's controlled by a small group. And it's limited to the asset disposition sector. We don't want outside industries coming in or people with intentions that are not geared towards this industry. So the first 100 it's asset disposition. The requirement for being a member is you must run a node. Technically, it's not hard because OBADA will do that for you. You just have to own you have to have a server or rent one from, say, Amazon, and OBADA can manage that for you. And you can delegate that responsibility if you really want to somebody else. Membership is 3 different things. Governance is the main thing. First of all, there's no board. There's no controlling body. This is software. Anybody can make a proposal on how to change it, and then the members vote. 1 vote per member. No member gets any more votes than another. It's like the seats on a stock exchange, if you want to think of it that way. So that's the main one, governance. Second one is operational rights. You get paid for running these nodes. You get paid in the gas fees, but also To provide access to the blockchain, it has to go through a node. So you, for example, ASCDI as a membership organization can provide access to the blockchain to all their members through their nodes. And there's other services that are necessary, which I won't get into, but the members have those rights. And the last one is the utility tokens. There's 100 million of them going to be created, and the DAO members get 48% of those. The rest go to other groups and for sale eventually for the users. The early DAO members get a bigger share of those tokens than the later DAO members, and the next slide shows kind of where we are. So we launched the seed round last year with 7 companies, and a couple months ago started on round A, and immediately got 2 people jumped in, as you can see here, and then we're just ready to close on round A. We have some legal paperwork back from the attorney now, which has been ratified, which is the operating agreement for the DAO. We're about to send it out and close on this end of this round, and we're starting round B. So, and then at this conference last week, 3 or 4 more jumped in. So we're already at 27, and we haven't really even announced this yet. We want to get up to 100. I don't think it'll be a problem in the next few months. We're not in a rush. You know, part of this depends on the adoption of blockchain in general, and it's really starting. People are starting to become very aware of it. So I guess the last one is the closing here. It's just if you're interested in joining as a DAO member, you know, we'd love to have you as long as you're in this industry. I assume everybody here is. Our facilitator's name is Mark Schaefer, and you can email him at bizops@obada.io. And if you just want to get more involved or learn more, there's a monthly working group, first Thursday of every month, noon Eastern, on that link there. And our website's a work in progress, but there's a lot of info up there as well.
Great. Rohi, thank you. And we will share all that information, all the contact information, the OBADA information with all the people who signed up for today. So Rohi, thanks a lot. Thanks for your many years of dedication to this project. I think we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, so thank you.
Thanks.
Folks, any questions? Well, while we have Rohi with us, any questions at all? Feel free to unmute yourselves and turn on your camera. You can just ask them directly to Rohi. Okay. Super. Okay. If not, our next 2 events, December 8th, we're having a session on why certify. Why do IT resellers want to certify? And we're going to have a session about that December 8th. January 20th, we're having our next, what we're calling micro meetings. We just had 3 of them. We had New Jersey, Atlanta, Minnesota, very well attended. They were all sellouts. And we're hoping the one in California will be as will likewise sell out. We decided this year not to have that big 200, 300 people meeting, waiting to see until how COVID pans out around the world, how things settle down. So for right now, we're going with these micro meetings. Again, they've been real successful. Hopefully, if you're in the California area, you will attend. We'll send you more information about that. Last chance for questions. Anybody at all? Okay, well, I do want to thank you all for joining us this morning, for you folks in Europe this afternoon. Real important. I think the traceability of equipment and services is going to really dictate where our industry heads in the future. Have any more questions on this, feel free to give me a call. I want to thank you all very much. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.